here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned. Immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of Nawaz, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love and poetry and all that other groovy stuff. Has been in lots of bands, including Southern Death Cult, also Get in the Fear and Fundamental, and lots of other musical projects. And also he formed Nation Records in the 90s and is still doing projects to this very day that you'll find out about in this fascinating interview. So do take notes, I will test you at the end. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Aki, it's over to you.
Yeah, well, it was a bit difficult for me, David, because I was brought up in Bradford, and obviously, my parents, and they brought me across from Pakistan, and they had that immigrant kind of inspiration and aspirations and things like this. And I come from just a peasant farmer family, and music was a bit of a taboo for some reason. It was like it wasn't a vision to go forward to. It was all about being doctors and accountants, and my dad just worked on the buses. But I recall I used to come back from school at dinner times, and I used to always put on things like Radio 1, and I'd listen to things like the Beatles, and I remember that. And I don't know why I specifically remember the song Obla Di Obla Da. I don't know why. I don't know what that. I can't remember what. It wasn't the Beatles, was it? It was somebody else, I think.
No, I think it was the Beatles.
Was it the Beatles?
I think it was a couple of their novelty records, wasn't there?
Oh, okay.
It might have been around the time of the Yellow Submarine. I remember they did do one or two of those kind of odd little numbers. So
I just used to listen to that, and obviously then there's things like Top of the Pops used to happen. We used to listen and watch with great curiosity, but we didn't have the luxury to go down any of that route. All I know is that every Thursday at school we used to have an assembly, and one of my friends used to go up on stage with his guitar and with another guy, and used to sing a song, and he used to go, "Oh, I really want to be on that stage on a Thursday morning." But it wasn't anything. And it wasn't until, and then we got into, I had an elder brother who started to listen to things like, he started to bring records home like Tubular Bells and Deep Purple and all that. But I wasn't listening to them. I was really into the Osmonds and Bay City Rollers and all that kind of stuff. And obviously some of the glam stuff like, Wizard and Sweet and all that stuff was coming. It was in our faces. And then all I recall is coming back from school one day. I had to do some revision, and I picked up one of his records that he brought in, which, from what I remember and recall, was the Clash record.
Right.
Yeah, and I put the Clash on, and I don't know, something happened to me. I gravitated to the energy or whatever, the madness of it. And just overnight, I just got it was almost like a religion. I just got punkified.
Yes, well, absolutely. It was interesting because your brother sounds a little bit like had a few records that I had an older brother who was 7 years older, and his musical moment was the 70s, and he was into prog rock, which obviously had the Tubular Bells album, as well as the Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, but it was all Yes, Genesis, Wishbone Ash, those sort of bands.
That's right.
And he definitely, punk was just that was just the big. So it was interesting your brother kind of embraced another musical movement, really.
Oh, absolutely. And what was more kind of ironic was my dad was just a... Oh, shit. Oh, shit. I knew this had happened.
Never mind.
So it was quite ironic, actually, because my dad was just a bus conductor. But to him, education was like everything. So he used to work his backside off, and he managed. He was. I mean, one of the first people to send my elder brother to a private school.
Right.
Yeah, it meant everything to him. So he and it was very difficult. I can remember they never had the money to pay for the fees, and they would borrow from the community to pay every 3 months or whatever. And my dad had invested all his hopes in him. But even while he was at that private school, that's what he turned into a punk before he left school. He left that school. So my dad was like tearing his hair out. And then I listened to it, and then I, got contaminated. So suddenly he had two of his elder sons.
Yes. How many children were there, by the way?
There was five of us.
Right.
There was a bit of a gap.
Were you in the middle there?
Yeah, I was in the middle. And there was a bit of gap between the younger ones, about 3 or 4 years or whatever. And it did my dad's head in and my mum's, because he was educated, but he never got the job to match his education. He'd educated himself.
Yes.
And he could speak English and all that stuff. And he was... a lot of people used to come to our houses when we were growing up to get forms filled in and things like this, passports or some issue with the courts or something like that. So my father would help him. So suddenly his well-respected persona in the community was shattered. Everybody would say, "Oh, look at a fantastic dad, and look at his sons, they're walking around with spiky hair, and he did so much for them," and all that stuff. So it was like a kind of classic tale of rebelliousness and letting down my father. But I was totally into it. I was totally into the kind of freedom. And I think it was for me, it was a rejection of what we thought was British culture, the conservative aspects of British culture, and also it was a liberation from my own culture, which was obviously Pakistani, Asian, Muslim, quite liberal. It wasn't a hardcore house or anything like that. But to liberate myself from that as well. So to me, it was totally breaking the shackles off both sides of life, and then cutting out your own path. And then I can just remember a few months later, I was still at school, the Sex Pistols played. And they played at a club in Keighley called the Knickers Club.
So, yes. So was this the one that... this isn't the one that happened on Christmas Eve or something, was it?
I think that was Huddersfield.
I think, yes, that was that book, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The Christmas Eve by... Kevin Cummins did a... Yes, went there.
Kevin, yeah. So I think we saw that that was the Huddersfield gig, which I was supposed to go to, but I didn't. But the one before was the Knickers Club in Keighley, which was actually a strip club. Anyway, I can remember we went there and obviously saw the Pistols and went mental and all that stuff, and then had to walk back home, which was quite about 12, 15 miles because we didn't have the money. And went back to school in the morning. Just kind of baptized. But I don't know. It was I don't know what the hell was going on. We were not allowed to really go out beyond 9, 10 o'clock at night because my parents would get really angry or whatever. But we used to always make up excuses with my dad to say we'd been to see Star Wars or something.
Right.
And it got delayed, the film. So we stayed on I never watched Star Wars, but that was the excuse for the first 6, 7, 8 months or whatever. And then, but yeah, I mean, that was the kind of, I loved what was going on in general in music around us, but getting into punk was an absolute liberation for me musically and
Yes, well, absolutely.
culturally, and just breaking. Suddenly you became free, and
So
it
was
meant a lot to me.
So was the Sex Pistols the first gig you went to, by the way?
Yeah, it was.
My God, you went high on that one, didn't you? Yes, it was
Yeah,
interesting. And then, so when you got to sort of the age of 16, it was 1977. So did you do your O levels at that stage and stay on at school, or had you left?
That was the time where I stayed on for about 6 months in the sixth form. I can remember. I didn't do really well in my O levels. I even cheated and still failed.
Oh my God.
And then I stopped going to school, although my dad thought I was going to school. We'd just go up to a friend's house who was also a punk rocker, and we'd spend the days there, and then going down to wherever a lot of punks would meet during the day. So, we'd go up to school, sign in, and then just leave. And the sixth form wasn't that strict.
Right.
So that just all my education started to become, come from the University of Punk, really.
Right, blimey. There you go. So was there a venue in Bradford? I know the 1 in 12 club. I don't think that was there in the 70s.
It wasn't there right at the beginning. There used to be a pub called the Manville Arms,
right,
where all the punks used to hang out with. And then we had the Queen's Hall. And from that, on Sunday evenings, there used to be a pub called the Royal Standard, which put on all the punk bands. Everyone, Adam and the Ants, and if you remember that band called Pure Hell.
Oh yes, Pure God. Yeah. I did an interview with that guy.
Yeah, oh, brilliant.
Yes, Pure Hell from New York, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Blimey, I think they did a cover of these boots are made for walking. Actually,
that's right. That's the one. That's the one. And obviously, bands like Angelic Upstarts, and then there used to be a band called the Jerks, which were a punk band, and they did a song called "Get Your Woofing Dog Off Me." Woof 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 woof. And all the bands had come through. They were either playing Queen's Hall, or they were playing the Royal Standard, or the University. So Bradford was actually quite incredible.
Yes,
place for a lot of punk things going on. And then we had the F Club in Leeds. John Keenan, the promoter, had started off the F Club, and then eventually, obviously, he started to do the Futuramas. So we would go to the Futuramas, and then we had the Warehouse and the Phonographic in Leeds, which were a bit more new romantic and a bit more style,
yes,
arty kind of places. But Bradford was buzzing, really buzzing.
And was Hebden Bridge sort of happening at that stage?
Not at that particular time. Now Hebden Bridge is a kind of an area for hippies and anarchists, and I think there's another area, Todmorden or something.
Todmorden, yes, there you go.
Todmorden is a bit more anarchist, left wing. Hebden Bridge wasn't. Halifax was kind of bubbling as well. There used to be Halifax. I mean, all them areas. Huddersfield was a lot of things happening in Huddersfield.
Yes.
And at the time, my father had left the buses and managed to buy a little shop. So we were then still going to school or college or whatever, and I really wanted to be in a band. It was my ultimate ambition.
Yes, well, absolutely.
And, so I used to steal loads of money from the till.
Right, God, the guilt. You must look back on that with such guilt.
I got no guilt at all. I used to steal the money and go buy all the backline.
Right.
For the band, because most of my mates, some of the ones who could play, they were too lazy to buy the equipment and so on. But I was so kind of focused and visioned that I went and bought all the stuff, and then they'd come and rehearse and do 2 or 3 rehearsals, and I started off a band called Violation,
Right.
and then I managed to bump. I can't remember what gig it was at the university. I heard this guy called Barry Jepson, and he was a bass player, and he was a really, really kind of strong Adam and the Ants follower, and he looked great and everything. And I just went up to him and said to him, "Oh, listen, I'm trying to find some musicians, but I want people who are serious, who are really into it." And he goes, yeah, let's get together. And we got together, and that was the beginning of Violation. And we got a singer, we got a guitarist who left quite quick, and then we bumped into Buzz, who was a guitarist. He used to be a punk right in the early days as well, probably even before I was. And but he was part of the arty crowd, which ironically he used to hang around Zodiac Mindwarp.
Oh, blimey, yes.
Yeah, Zodiac Mark Manning. Mark Manning, I believe, went to Bradford College of Art, but he was a punk rocker. He lived on the outskirts of Leeds, Armley, but he used to come to Bradford. So Buzz and him and the arty crew hung, and they looked fantastic. They were the kind of the equivalent of Susie and all them lot, Adamant, London, all that crew, the Bromley crew, looking good and all that stuff. They were the Bradford equivalent. And Buzz was in a bit of an art band playing guitar. He'd left that, and then I just said to him, "Oh, do you want to join the band?" And he said, "Yeah, well, give me a tape." So I dropped the tape off the day after. And he heard the tape, and he phoned me up. I phoned him up or chased him up, and he said, "Oh, the tape is crap, but I just like the fact that you're really determined, so I'll come down." And he came, and then he joined, and then we had a few gigs as Violation, supported The Clash, supported Killing Joke, supported a few other bands, and then the lead singer left, and then I used to do a bit of promotion myself, punk gigs, me and my brother, and I put Crass and Poison Girls on.
Jeezy crazy. What was that for £2.50p or something?
For £1.50, I remember.
£1.50, yeah, you don't want to rip off the fans.
Yeah. And Crass would not do gigs with any normal promoters at that particular time.
Right.
I can't remember how I got them, really don't. But they came up, and I'd got a new club, which was an Italian community club, which was a fantastic place. And we put them on there, and Ian Asbury used to follow around Crass and Poison Girls.
Right.
So he turned up. We did the concert, fantastic. And then a few days later, we used to rehearse in the basement of New Model Army House with Justin.
Yes.
Justin, Jules, little brother, Swells, if you remember Swells, the journalist.
Yes.
He used to live there. It was like a hippie punk house, and everybody. And then we noticed Ian, when he came to Bradford, he stayed over at their house that night, and he didn't leave. He just stayed there. So Buzz had seen him dancing at a New Romantic club in Bradford.
Right.
And said, "Oh, he had a really weird dance. He was really good at dancing, but in a really bizarre way." So we said, "Okay, well, let's just test him out and see if he can sing." And we asked him, and he came down and he sang. And to be honest, we didn't think much of it, but he felt good, and he felt like a nice person, a nice guy, and he just joined. And then after a few weeks, because we had some Violation songs anyway, within a few, say about 2 or 3 months, we did our first gig, which was at the 1 in 12 club.
Right. My God, you were there. And so what did the set consist of? What did your...
Well, I think there's about 6 or 7 songs which were actually written by Violation, and then we'd written some more with Ian. I mean, he didn't play guitar or anything, but Buzz and Barry were really good. They were like the kind of punk version of Lennon and McCartney or something. They were in that good zone, and they were always fighting each other and things like this. I never saw myself as a musician. I didn't even understand what I was doing most of the time on the drums, but
Right.
I did. But I had the drive. The drive was very, very intense. So I think we only wrote about 9 songs, and we played the 1 in 12 club. And I remember it just going down so well with the small crowd. It can't have been that many people. And the promoter, Gary, was one of the founders of the 1 in 12 club. I still meet him and see him. And I can just recall it coming up to me in his Bradford accent. He goes, Aki, I've got no money. We didn't make any money on door. But listen, man, you've got a real good band there. You're going to go far. You're going to go far. So I can remember that from the first gig. And then, to be honest, David, we just worked. Did your little demos, sent them off to John Peel. I was still promoting with my brother. And my brother put on Killing Joke in F Club in Leeds. And he said, no, he put Killing Joke on, yeah, that's it. I'd gone to see the gig, and then the week after he put Chelsea on.
Yes.
With Gene October. And he didn't have a support band. And he just said, well, do you want to play with Chelsea? I mean, I would have loved to play with Killing Joke. Killing Joke blew my brains out when I saw them. So we played with Chelsea, and fantastic gig. Gene October took to us, like mental style.
Right.
You know, he was a bit of a dodgy guy, believe it or not, in the sexual arena.
Oh, right. I was thinking, was it money? But no.
No. And he really found Barry and Buzz extremely attractive.
Right.
Extremely, almost like madly. And anyway, he just, for some reason, he just said, I'll tell you what, we're playing a gig at the Marquee in a couple of weeks or whatever. Took my number down, phoned me up, invited us down to come down and do the gig. So I can remember that day we set off. There was mad snow. There was snowstorms everywhere. And we drove down, did the gig, jumped back in the car, drove all the way back up to Bradford. And then 6 or 7 days later, a review of the gig came out in Sounds.
Right.
And he just wrote about 2 lines about Chelsea, and the rest of the review was just about Southern Death Cult.
My God.
This was when the Marquee was in Wardour Street. And it just... I phoned him up a week later and said, the journalist, and I said, do you want to do an interview or something? I mean, I never had any kind of reservations about... I didn't know what the parameters were of doing business or whatever. I just thought, well, he's seen us, he's done a review, let's see if he wants to do an interview. And he went wild. And then, believe it or not, he came on, I think he said, come down to London, we'll do the interview. And a couple of weeks later, we had like 2-page spread in Sounds.
Blimey. God, you were the flavour of the month there, weren't you?
I think it was the beginning. There was a lot of things happening, to be brutally honest. It was just like, then people would be ringing us up, and suddenly, we got a gig with Killing Joke, we got a gig with somebody else, and then some agent had seen us from the agency. He's called Paul Boswell. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's a really famous agent. And he got in touch and gave us some gigs, I think, with Theatre of Hate or something. And then Bar House came along. We supported Theatre of Hate on tour, supported Bows on tour. We'd get gigs with Clash, we'd get gigs with A Killing Joke. It became Ian Wilson from Wasted Talent. He got us loads of gigs, and it was just like a train out of control.
Yes.
And we'd only written 10, 11 songs. And we just got so busy, and I don't know what the attraction was, but people went absolutely mental. I mean, Ian was a great frontman, and he was really passionate. He was really sincere. His politics mattered a lot to him. He was a kind of hippie stroke punk. Didn't like the glamour of the music business and all that stuff. So Here We Were was a band with a moody band, but we were being entertained by every record company everywhere. Blah, 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 blah. It was mental. You know, you'd have Culture Club manager ringing you up, "Oh, I want to manage you." You'd have the head of CBS. It was Maurice Oberstein at the time. He wanted to sign you up, and it was all going on. And you know, I think we went to support Killing Joke in Aylesbury, and it was sold out, and the whole of CBS came. Ian basically told them all to F off. He didn't want to sign to a big label. And at the same time, we'd had Beggars Banquet.
Right.
People knew people at Beggars Banquet, and they kind of entertained us. And Ian really liked Martin. We really liked Martin Mills. And we just ended up signing to them.
Yes. So that was on, well, kind of Situation 2, which is kind of Beggars.
That's right.
So there was quite a movement during that early 80s, wasn't there? Of, I suppose there was the Batcave, wasn't there? And a lot of
Sex Gang Children, the Batcave, the Alien Sex Fiend. There was quite a few young.
Did you find that music was very tribal back in those days? Because there was also other scenes, like there was the Blitz Kids scene, wasn't there? New Romantics. There was also, I suppose, was psychobilly happening at that stage.
Yeah, rockabilly with what were they called?
Well, there was the Cramps, wasn't there? But then there was God, who else?
Meteors.
Yes, the
Meteors and all that stuff, right?
And King Kurt and the
King Kurt, that's it. All the bands were there was a lot of like kind of little tribes going around, and there was some cross fertilization, and then there was, you know, the New Romantics were happening, and all, but in a way, it was quite interesting. Southern Death Cult seemed to be able to. We had our feet in all them little tribes around. So, you know, even the rockabilly kids or the mad kids, because I never really liked the Meteors. They were a bit too violent for me.
Yes.
I liked the Angelic Upstarts and the Exploited and Cockney Rejects, but I didn't like the Crowds. They were too violent.
Yes, I'd have felt quite intimidated.
I always felt really threatened, obviously, because of who I was. But we seemed to be able to kind of touch each of them crowds. I don't know why. We weren't particularly goth. We weren't particularly, well, we definitely weren't oi. We weren't rockabilly. But I think with our interaction with Theatre of Hate, because Theatre of Hate were on going up in the charts and things like this. So a lot of their following loved what we were doing and started to follow us.
Yes.
And then we had the Bauhaus people following us as well.
There was a lot of beautiful people at that time, weren't there? There was a lot of rather chiseled cheekbones and sort of sharp hairstyles. I mean, all those bands are, they could have all been male models, really, couldn't they? But but at that stage, it was quite interesting because in '79, Thatcher gets in, doesn't she? So suddenly the '80s is, got this conservative Tory party who, under Thatcher, and then there was the Falkland crisis and war, and then it was the miners' strike, and then there was Greenham Common with the threat of nuclear war. Was that kind of, was that tapping into your consciousness at that stage, or were you just...
Absolutely. I mean, part of part of what was going on was Ian was very political and very intensely political. The rest of us were quite, I mean, we were working class kids brought up on the streets of Bradford, very northern. We had a really northern attitude and we were quite anti-South in terms of power and we were involved with a lot of anti-Nazi League, Rock Against Racism. We were totally influenced by that left wing.
Yes.
That left thing. So we were very, very left wing, and all these things were making sense to us. And we hated Thatcher, and we hated them kind of people, and we hated Nazis, and we did a lot of gigs, and ended up in a lot of violence.
Right. Yes.
Like a lot. But the following we had was very, very diverse. We'd have Afro-Caribbeans, Asians, just general white kids, and then you'd have Ukrainians and Lithuanians and Polish, and there was a real mixed bag. So when the skinheads or the fascists or whatever you want to call them at the time, when they turned up at concerts, it was mental. Honestly, it was like, and it was weird because some people saw Southern Death Cult as they couldn't work out whether we were a bit new romantic as well. But, Buzz in the band and Barry, and we'd all been brought up in the streets of Bradford fighting, getting bullied and fighting. So we were all kind of like, we never looked for trouble, but when it came, we didn't back off.
Right.
We used to run, and I can remember, especially Buzz, who you wouldn't think whatsoever that he would ever do anything. He used to just jump into the middle of the skinheads. And it was like, he'd have his makeup on and his really nice crimped hair or plaited hair. And there was this kind of blonde god, who looked more kind of, he looked like you couldn't tell whether he was a girl or a boy, but fighting these really hardcore skinheads with Doc Martens, coming out of their ears or whatever. So it was a fantastic kind of time where everybody stuck together.
Yes.
Really did. And I can actually say I used that experience. I'd get picked on quite a lot. Visually, I'd be a target. And the amount of people that would, if I can put it this way, the amount of white people that had come before I'd even get attacked was amazing. They'd form lines. They say, if you want to touch him, you've got to come through us. And it was almost like, it was almost like The Warriors or something, film.
Oh, yes, I remember that film well.
Or The Wanderers, you've got to go through us before you get to them. So it was that. There was thousands of stories going on, and we had quite a big. We had about 10, 15 Asian girls and boys we'd contaminated or got into punk rock. So wherever we went, there was a very diverse crowd.
Yes. So you brought out one single, didn't you? And then there's this compilation that comes out.
That's right. Yeah.
80. So then, how does the band then evolve or not evolve? Because it doesn't last that terribly long, does it?
Well, we only lasted 18 months.
Yes.
From beginning to end, we only lasted 18 months. We put out the single, although we'd done John Peel sessions. I think we'd done a Kid Jensen session or something like, that was Getting the Fear, I can't remember. John Peel was really pushing us.
Yes.
That's where we did the gig in Norwich as well. And there was so much violence at the end of it. I still recall John Peel at the side of the stage, absolutely in fear, because all these skinheads had turned up to the concert. I've still got the poster somewhere. I can't remember.
Oh, because I know John Peel, used to get daily death threats for playing reggae, African music, hip hop, just and sort of had to live with this kind of complete hostility, and people just made out that yes, very strange.
he loved Southern Death Cult, and I think it was just a combination of. I don't think that we were. I think we were innocent. We were quite naive, but extremely, extremely driven. Not planning anything. And I think that combination, the chemistry in the band was quite good because there were people who were taking care of like the imagery and then the music and then because we didn't even have a manager.
Right.
And to be honest, all my life I've never had a manager, really, and never. I've always done my own thing and pushed it myself. And
so were you taking all the phone calls and having to sort of
yeah.
You had to navigate all that, my God. So you did your John Peel show on the 10th of June, 1982. So that was a full track, wasn't it? Fat Man Today, False Faces, All Glory. That was it.
Yeah.
Yes. Were you pleased with the results? Because most people often feel that their sessions at the Maida Vale are probably the best recordings they've done of certain songs rather than the one that they did on the album. Were you pleased with the results of that?
I believe so. I can't. All I know is that there's restrictions in it. You can't get too, for a better word, sound in or about how you want your drums to sound or anything because it's a live recording. So we just did that, and I can't remember who the engineer was. He became quite famous later on. I think he did the Smiths or something. Anyway, I think we were fine. We were fine with what happened, and because usually Barry and Buzz would argue about whether the guitar was not loud enough, or the vocals were not loud, or the vocals were too loud, and the bass should be higher. But in this particular John Peel session, you didn't have time for that. The engineer just said, "No, I think that sounds good. That sounds right. Sounds good for radio. Good." So, and we just, I think we were fine. And I think when John Peel played them, he really loved it and got on board. And I'd actually sent the first demo we'd recorded in Bradford to John Peel. And I'd phoned up John Peel's show one day, and he picked up the phone. And I was talking about the Southern Death Cult to him. And I can remember I said, "I've sent the tape to you, blah, blah, blah." He said, "Okay, I'll try digging it out," and all that, blah, 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 blah. And then he phoned me back and said it was fantastic and gave us a session.
God, that's fantastic. And then soon after that, did you appear on the Tube as well?
Yeah, the Tube, something else. There was another programme.
That was essential sort of viewing on a Friday afternoon, evening, wasn't it? The Tube.
Oh, the Tube was mental. Yeah, I mean, it was the go-to show, wasn't it?
It was the go-to. It was
it was the go. You get on the Tube, and as long as you're good, it'll make a big difference.
Well, actually, I've sort of gone back and watched some of them from. I think someone's uploaded them on YouTube, and they're really diverse. I mean, and I guess if you were doing a program every week, you just had to throw everything together to make sure you got the content. But it's very random, but brilliant in its kind of bizarreness sometimes.
Yeah, I think it had that kind of what was his name in Manchester, the Hacienda?
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
With somebody Wilson. Brian, no, not Brian.
Not Brian. It was
that was his brother, probably. Tony
Wilson.
Tony Wilson, yes. He didn't.
I think Jules Holland kind of like had the same kind of attitude, or Paula Yates was quite anarchic and
yes.
So and they brought a new design to presentation, and I think there was a bit of swearing going on.
Yes, and I always remember Rick Mell getting very drunk and just throwing up, and people thinking it was an act, but he just got very drunk. So, so then how does the band? I mean, then why does it finish at that moment where it looks like it's about to take off?
Yeah, I mean, we just played Heaven, and it was completely and utterly sold out. U2 turned up, Pete Townsend turns up, loads and loads of like big celebrities turned up, but a lot of them couldn't get in. We played that concert, and everybody's going, this is going to be the next big thing. be the next biggest band. And then I think we were on a tour and we played in Manchester. I mean, and I'll be totally brutally honest with you, even to this day, I don't understand. I haven't really been given a reason, the exact reason why we split up. All I know is that for a little while we had some guy who was kind of administrating us, not managing us, but administrating us. And he was very good friends with Ian. And I think Ian felt that he joined a band. It wasn't his band. And I don't know why he thought that, but that's what he felt. And we'd had a bit of a fallout with this guy because a load of money, because he'd got drunk and a load of money had got stolen from the tour.
Right.
And it started to kind of fall apart with him. And as it fell apart with him, then I think Ian felt something else. And I think he'd met up with Billy on the sidelines, because I recall seeing Billy Duffy getting bullied by the rest of the Theatre of Hate guys when we were on tour with them. I can remember that because we'd recorded for Terry Razor, who was the manager of Theatre of Hate. He had his own label. And there is one version of Moya or Fat Man, I think, on their records somewhere, which is quite obsolete.
Yes.
Anyway, I think I don't know. I don't know if I was at fault, Barry was at fault, Buzz was at fault. I just know that this train was going so fast. We were driving it, but we had no brakes, and Ian decided to jump.
Blimey, that must have felt heartbreaking.
Oh, I can actually, I could tell you that I can remember we'd had a conversation, all of us, and then I'd come back home, everything was fine, and then suddenly somebody somewhere along the line said, "Oh, Ian said he's leaving the band," and he didn't live very far from my mum's house where I lived in Bradford, and I went down I thought I'll go have a talk with him and I'll see what's going on, but I couldn't get in touch with him. He went AWOL, completely AWOL. Couldn't talk to him. He wouldn't discuss anything, which happens. And I can remember crying. I can actually remember crying because, I was really into getting the band to really do well and everything. And we'd recorded Fat Man and Moya for Beggar's Banquet. That had gone up into the charts. It had been number one, or it was about to become number one. And there was a lot of things going on. Martin Mills had invested money into the band. And I felt really, we were all kind of like, I was heartbroken.
Yes.
I didn't want it to happen. Then because we couldn't speak to him, we got no chance. He wouldn't answer the phone calls or anything like that. So, and then we'd heard he'd hooked up with Billy Duffy or something like that, but didn't want to come back in. And,
God, have you ever spoke to him since?
Yeah. We became really good friends after, and also, but I never had, because he was always busy. I can tell you later on, because we met him loads of times, because Fundamental were doing really well, and then we'd be on the same bill as the Cult in Australia and New Zealand and at certain big festivals. So
yes,
I'd bump into Ian and all that stuff, but we never ever sat down and said, "I'd like to have done."
Yes, well, quite.
Ian, so tell me what the truth is.
Yes, just get
Tell
it.
me what happened. Was it me? Was I the problem? Who was the problem?
Yeah.
Sometimes you never get answers to things, isn't it? Like when bands split up, nobody knows what's going on. And
I think with a lot of things like that, you speculate and you keep thinking about it, and all you want is someone to tell you the absolute truth, and it often it doesn't have to take ages. Because it's often quite simple, and you go, oh, right, okay, and there's nothing hidden. It's just like from you go, and then it just lets it all go. So yes.
I still want the closure on why Southern Death Cult split up, because I've heard a few different things, but some of the different things don't make sense to me. They don't. It can't be that reason. There must be
Yeah.
something else. So, um, and we actually, we'd actually got back together again, to do a rehearsal. And I think things were going badly with Billy Duffy and Ian. And Ian kind of parked up the cult. And he came to my house, and we sat down, and he redid some vocals, and then we went and rehearsed. We were going to start doing gigs and everything. And then I think the cult got back together again.
Right.
So that didn't happen.
That didn't happen either.
Yeah, but what was interesting, David, is that after we'd split up, weirdly, I think Mark Manning, Zodiac Mind Warp, had moved down to London, and he was I can't remember what magazine he was working on, Smash Hits or something. He was doing all the artwork for it or something. Mark Manning, was it Smash Hits or something? Anyway, he knew, but obviously he knew us all. And then he got Paul Hampshire, who was called B, who was from Barnsley. B, and B had gone out to Japan and become a bit of a sex symbol.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. My God,
Yeah, and he was here. Mark Manning knew him and told him, "Listen, Aki and Buzz and Barry are looking for a singer. Why don't you go up and audition?" And we were looking for a singer. And I think he came up to Bradford, auditioned, and he obviously he always looked fantastic. He was like, he was iconic, isn't he, at that particular time.
Yes.
So, he joined the band, and then it happened again. We just, within 3 or 4 or 5 months, there was a big buzz about us, and record companies knocking on doors, wanting us, sign us up, people coming up, blah, 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 coming to Bradford. And we hadn't written that many songs. And then suddenly RCA came in and offered us a massive deal, the biggest deal that year. The Beggars Banquet was peanuts deal, really, at that particular time for Southern Death Cult.
Right.
But RCA offered us a massive deal. And for me, coming from that immigrant background and everything, I thought, oh, great, I can now sort my mum and dad out. I can help them get out, because we never had any money. We were too big. The family was too big, and my father was the only person who worked. So, and I thought, oh, great, I can get some money to my mum and dad at last and all that stuff, and I can buy a bit more of my freedom. Because although I'd rebelled, I'd never left the kind of family or anything. I didn't become, not for any particular reason. I didn't take drugs, and I wasn't drinking, never drunk all my life, never took drugs, which is a good thing because I've got a very addictive personality. And I know that if I had done, I would have been wasted, because I've got the addictive personality. I know I've got it. I've got nothing against particular drugs or whatever, but I understand the effects of them, because everybody around me was completely smashed every Friday night, and and yeah. I'd become the good Samaritan, taking people home or being people's taxi drivers.
You were the driver, weren't you?
Yeah, I was the driver. So, and so we got the deal with Getting the Fear. Got a big deal with the publishing as well. And suddenly we started to do gigs, and a lot of the Southern Death Cult followers would start following Getting the Fear. And that started to... suddenly John Peel gave us a session, Kid Jensen gave us a session or whatever. And I don't know why. But everything just seemed to fall in place really quickly.
Yes. Well, again... very good-looking men, really, aren't you?
Yeah. Now it must be the image. I mean, it must have been the.
Well, it could be the music, but it's.
Yeah.
I mean, B is probably the most handsome man.
Oh yeah,
of the 80s.
Well, I'm glad you know of him, because a lot of people don't know him. But he used to look absolutely spectacular.
Well, I did an interview with him a few years ago because
All right.
he came on my radar, and I was thinking, wow. And yes, he talked about, yes, he had a certain drug addiction, didn't he, as well, in the
Oh,
90s?
yeah. I mean, B was experimented with everything and anything.
But my God, I mean, when I saw that photograph, I was thinking, No, I had no. It was just like God. He must have just wooed the whole
Oh,
crowd.
yeah, he was stunning. I mean, like, he was attractive to everybody, whether you're male, female, animal, whatever, It used to be quite funny because when I used to walk around in Bradford with him, by the time I got home, my mum would say, "Who have you been walking around with?" Because it didn't matter. I was in Southern Death Cult. It didn't matter to them how, I'd been in the newspapers, on television. So, who have you been walking around with? And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" They go, "Your uncle just phoned up and you were hanging around with an English girl in town." I said, "I've just been hanging around with B." And he go, "Oh," I said, "It's B," and all that stuff. But there was always little stories going on, especially because the culture, although I thought I'd liberated myself from the culture, I hadn't, because I was still connected to it because of my parents and my brothers and my sisters and things like this. And I didn't reject it completely. I liked certain aspects of it. And then, sometimes like Ian Astbury would go to my house and mum would make him a curry and all that stuff, and he'd love it because I really love your culture. And Barry and Buzz, and then B would go up and he'd go, "I really love the way your mum sits there smoking that big piece. The hookah. She looks like a Native American," and things like that. So there were very different things going on between my identity, however confused it was, which was also liked by a lot of people and things like that. So, but I still had a deep respect for especially my father, because he was quite
Yes.
a humble guy. He was a very humble guy. And I always thought we'd hurt him so much by becoming punks. So my only kind of safety valve was, well, at least he's never going to find me drugged out or in some addiction clinic or find me in a corner in centre of town, pissed out of my head, drunk.
Yes. Well, that's
So he never got the opportunity to whinge about that.
phew. So when
But
you did a single with Get in the Fear, Last
yeah,
Salute. So and Mark Manning did your design. Did you get the advance as a band at that stage? Did they
oh
give
yeah,
you?
yeah.
So were you able then to sort of give your parents like, oh, by the way,
Yeah, I gave him a load of money. Everybody else, when we got the advance, everybody else kept their part of the money for themselves or whatever. Um, and all my wages, I can remember I gave I gave 70% of my wages to my mum and my parents.
wow, that was good times.
Yeah, and I didn't, because I never really needed money. I was a very DIY guy when it came to clothes and things like this. If you look at old photographs, most of my clothes were all DIY. I wasn't into seditionaries or Johnsons or whatever, Malcolm McLaren, Vivian Westwood. I liked their clothes, but I could never afford them.
Yes,
I
I
just
think
thought,
B had he told me his story that he had a Vivian Westwood, some clothes that his mum threw out once, and he was like, God, of all the things, I wish he hadn't done
yeah. So,
that.
but
But
we really
yes,
got on well with B. B was great. I mean, obviously, I hadn't heard of Charles Manson. I don't think the rest of us. But then he had this thing with the Charles Manson thing and psychic TV thing, which I think I can safely say that Buzz and Barry found it quite interesting, and they indulged in that, the whole Mr. Sebastian and all the piercings and things like that. I wasn't. I wasn't. There was something. I was fascinated by it, but I wasn't drawn to it.
Yeah, so I think it was quite fashionable in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You know, and Alistair Crowley threw that in there as well.
all that, yeah, all that dark, whatever, if it's dark or not, I don't know. But they were all into that, and it got a bit darker. I can remember we used to come down to London, and B used to take us to some of the most crazy clubs and places, mental. I mean, for me, you know, it was like, what is this? So you'd see like men walking around with like in bin liners with dog masks on and things like all the S&M clubs you'd be taking us down to.
Yes, that would
And for me, as a supposedly innocent immigrant Pakistani and not knowing what all this was about, it was fascinating. It was crazy.
yes.
But I couldn't get my head around it.
No, well, that's fair enough. So look, with the you got the single out, and you've obviously did a compilation of the material came out only a few years ago. Then, sort of, how was the band progressing after you did 1984? You did Last Salute, didn't you, with the
That's
RC?
yeah.
I mean, sort of 83 to 87 for me is a particularly fun time because there was a lot of indie pop started, isn't there? You know, there was a real golden period before Ecstasy came along in sort of, I don't know,
Yeah,
80,
absolutely.
87, 88. Then the music shifted again. But for those 4 years, there was like 5 years, there was a very kind of golden period of sort of quite exciting pop stuff going on, the
Well,
independent, not the mainstream.
yeah, there was a lot of wasn't it a lot of kind of overflow from the whole new romantic stuff and overflow from the goth stuff. It was all merging, and Marilyn had come out, Culture Club were doing their thing. There was all these things going on. I mean, to be brutally honest, when we did Getting the Fear, I think RCA were completely and utterly disappointed with us, but we were disappointed with that particular record. We thought it was horrible because we'd worked with Hein Hoven, who was a Stray Cats producer. And at that time, what's his name? Frankie Goes to Hollywood produced Trevor
Oh,
Horn.
Trevor Horn, yes, that
Trevor
production.
Horn had done all the Fairlight machines were coming in and things like this. So
Yes.
Hein Hoven was trying to kind of copy Trevor Horn. So he turned this song, which had two bass and a really heavy drum, he turned it into a more of a and it was too kind of like regimental. We didn't really like it, and then I don't. But we were still doing well live for some reason.
Who were you supporting anybody at this stage?
With I think with Getting the Fear, we even supported. I'm sure we supported because every band I seem to know that I was in always did Killing Joke or Brilliant, or we did a few gigs. I remember getting a lot of TV shows.
Right.
Not loads. Oxford Road show we'd got with UB40 and some still alternative programs, and I think that me and Buzz didn't really like what we were doing musically, and B was great. Oh yeah, I think this was the straw that broke the camel's back. We came down and we did a concert at Ulu, SOAS.
Oh yes, the good famous you.
Yeah, so we came down and did it. Ian Astbury turned up, and Genesis P. Orridge turned up.
God, celebrity time.
Right, so everybody knew this. So we were playing our set, and at the end of the set, we invite Ian on. And we're doing Moya, and he's doing a fantastic vocal, strong and everything. And he's kind of overshadowing B because he's a bigger guy and, more. And then Genesis P. Orridge comes on, and I think he came on and just, I don't know how you're going to interpret this, but he just grabs hold of B and starts snogging him or kissing him.
Right, yes.
So, and I can remember me and Buzz going, look at the difference between Ian and what he is as a front man and what the hell is this? You know, we don't get it. And I think it just kind of like went after a little while. Me and Buzz went, "Oh, we can't get into this. Can't get into this. All this stuff. Let's break off." Because Barry, the bass player, was into all the hedonism there.
Right. Yes.
It was whether you want. It was no judgment on B's character or anything, but couldn't get into the hedonism of everything. And then so we split up, me and Buzz. We decided to carry on, and then we left Bradford and moved down to London.
Yes.
But getting the feel, I mean, to be brutally honest, I learned a lot. And it wasn't until B put this album together recently, you know, probably when you met him and talked to him, that I heard the album. And Getting the Fear previously was an idea and a band that I wanted to forget about musically.
Right.
But then I heard it and I went, actually, there is some interesting stuff in there. It's, you know, there was some interesting. Obviously, B's voice wasn't as strong as Ian's, and but nevertheless, there was some interesting ideas, and I think B knew that I never liked Getting the Fear, but when I heard the album, I got back to it and I said, actually, some really interesting stuff there.
Yes. So you've had a bit of closure with B on that.
Yeah. I met B, I think last year or the year before when I met up with. I've got no problem with B. I love B. We all get on. Me, B, and Barry and Buzz. We all still kind of like meet up or whatever now and again.
Yes, because I think they went into another band, didn't they?
Into a Circle.
Yeah, that was a lovely band actually. I suppose, yeah, his vocals is very different to Ian's, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There was it was the power of genuineness or whatever. I don't know. You know, it's just.
So you did sort of a Kid Jensen, you did Oxford Roadshow, then you walked away. So how does it work when a band finishes? Because this is your second band in 5 years. How do you wrap up the, like your equipment, your stuff, your bank account? What are the processes of that?
I think it was quite interesting. I can't remember because I used to take care of everything, but when it came down to it, we didn't really have many issues. I think in Getting the Fear, there was a bank account. We had to close it down. We just split whatever was there, paid off all the debts, credit, or anything like that. Anybody who owed money. I can honestly say that in Southern Death Cult and Getting the Fear, there was absolutely, I don't recall any money, financial problems. We just, none of them, nobody was like kind of greedy or wanting.
No. Did our RTA say, that money, the deal? What do they get in touch with you at all?
David, I'll tell you the funniest thing. Me and Buzz had decided that we'd had enough of the band. We weren't really getting on well with RCA as well because they kept on changing A and R man.
Yeah.
What was his name? We even had Keith Chegwin.
Ah, Cheggers played
Cheggers. We even had, what's his name? He's the grandson of that great philosopher. What's his name?
Freud.
That's right.
Matthew
Freud, yeah. He was our A&R guy. So we had them, and then we had somebody else, and then we had somebody else. So the RCA A&R department was like forever changing.
Right.
And what happened is, before we could tell them that we'd split up, they said to us, we've decided to drop the band and not do another single. So they called us in. So we went in, and we thought we'd have to tell them that we split up. They didn't even ask us or anything. They said, we've decided that we want to drop you. We said, fine. And our lawyer at the time was this guy, and he told us just see what they want to do. And they just said, and we've decided because we're not going to carry on, we've breached the contract. Here's 45 grand extra. See you later.
Wow.
So there was no band.
No.
I mean, this is true. I'm just telling you the truth. And what had happened is that the lawyer was so kind of taken back by B. B invited him down to one of the S&M clubs. And that had swung the dial because he wanted to hang out with B a bit more.
Yes.
Yeah, so something was going on. I don't some kind of sexual corruption or something. I don't know.
Yes, I mean, it was, yes, best to, yeah, blimey. Well, slightly a happy end, and so fortunate you didn't say, we want to talk first, but, oh, right, okay, we'll go with that.
No, it was quite amicable.
I would imagine it's very, I mean, if you had said, look, we're splitting up and sorry, we've spent the money, they might have gone, oh, actually, we were just about to tell you to keep the money and here's 40 grand. So it was lucky that they negotiated first.
Yeah, they said, and weirdly, I can just remember now, the week before in the Melody Maker, somebody had leaked out that we'd split up. But for some reason, nobody at RCA noticed it.
Phew, that was very... So look, so you all got, I don't know, 10 grand.
I don't know what we got, I can't remember. Yeah, but we just...
So that was the end of that one. Did you, on the publishing, do you own the music from Sudden Death Cult? And
no, we'd assigned that to Warner Chappell.
Right, so that's...
Warner Chappell had signed us up in Southern Death Cult. Getting the Fear, RCA Music had signed us up. Lucian Grange, I don't know if you know him, he's like one of the biggest, he's running Universal now or something. He signed us up for the publishing. Yeah, that was the two Warner Chappell and RCA Publishing, RCA Records, and we were with Beggars Banquet, obviously, with Southern Death Cult. So, and to be honest, I don't, we were a very DIY band, and I don't recall any of us being into kind of bling or anything like that.
No. We
invested a lot of money in musical equipment and things.
Yes, well, absolutely, as you mentioned at the beginning. So look, it's 85 then. So where's your next kind of chapter? What happens before Fundamental?
So what happens is we're up in Bradford, and then I decide that we're going to move down to London.
Yes.
So I moved down to London. Me and Buzz decided to move down to London and form a band. What had happened is Eddie Temple Morris, I don't know if you know Eddie Temple Morris.
No, but he was a lot to do with Into the Fear, wasn't he?
No, he had nothing to do with Getting the Fear. Eddie Temple Morris was a bass player. He later on became really famous. Well, I don't know if famous, but well known for MTV presenting and Radio XFM or something like that. He used to be a DJ on it. He did really well afterwards. But anyway, somehow he got in touch. He came up to Bradford and joined the band, which then we called Joy. And then another kid called Dan Harvey turned up from Winchester, who was a bit more like Brian Ferry for some reason. Now, Buzz was always changing his musical direction.
Right.
And Buzz was a bit more into funk. Dan Harvey was, everybody had been a punk, but they were into like certain, he was into Steel Eye Span or something. I don't know. I didn't really know much about that band.
No. All Around My Hat was their favourite song.
Yeah, something like, I mean, and then Eddie Temple Morris was really into that slapping bass. He was a fantastic bass player, Eddie Temple Morris. So we formed a band called Joy. We rehearsed up in Bradford for a few months or whatever. I think we ran out of money, and it was like, Buzz said, well, why don't we just move down to London? And so we just moved down to London and carried on rehearsing, suddenly we got a lot of interest from Virgin
Right.
and
Yes.
EMI. Again, we supported Killing Joke.
My God, that band must have been a bit spooked every time they sold the support act and you were in it.
Yeah.
Did they put a
It was a
restraining order?
Hammersmith Palais. It was a
Right.
Hammersmith Palais. So Virgin Records were really interested. But I think the Hammersmith Palais gig was absolute disaster.
Right.
And I don't know if Branson came or somebody, but all the top guys came down to that gig and didn't work out. We'd actually played a big gig with Youth
Yep.
at London Zoo, in the actual zoo.
Interesting.
And that was a good gig, and they'd all really liked that, Virgin. But when we played the Hammersmith Palais with Killing Joke, it just complete disaster. And then we just kept on working hard, but it wasn't working out. And to be brutally honest, I wasn't getting into the music. I couldn't. It was too funky. It was, and it was too intricate. And obviously, Eddie was a great musician. Buzz was a great musician. Dan was a fantastic musician and a singer. I was the weak link.
Right.
I just couldn't get that, that rhythm on the drums for being a bit funky and skips and things like that. And I felt like the weakest link. And after a little while, I just realised and I said, I'm leaving. That's it. So I left them to it. They all broke up. They didn't do anything afterwards because the driver's gone.
Yes, I know.
Once the driver goes, other people realise how valuable a driver is to each band.
Yes.
So, and then I quickly got together with Catherine Cannaville, who also moved down from Bradford, and we formed a management company. Through the management company, I started to look after Talvin Singh and a couple.
Oh yes.
Talvin Singh. We'd spotted him and we thought he was great. But there was a couple of bands, Giant International, and then suddenly we picked up a band called Romy and Jazz, who were two sisters. They were a bit like Mel and Kim of the Asian.
Right.
Picked them up, but the weird thing happened. I phoned up Peter Robinson, who was the head of Chrysalis Records at the time. And I knew him from RCA. Because I always tried not to burn my bridges with record companies and people.
Yes.
I mean, there was no ego between it. I just thought, get on with work and all. So quite a few people knew me. So I took in a record that Romy and Jazz had just cut. And I was playing it. And the main guy who owned Chrysalis Records, which I can't remember his name now, Chris something.
Oh, yes. I think he's had a book out recently.
Yeah, something like that. He has, I think. He walked past the office, heard it, walked in and said, what is this? And Pete just said, oh, this is Aki management and all that stuff. And he goes, I want this record. They just took me upstairs, blah, blah, we want to do the deal. And we did a deal with that straight away. And it was almost like I touched things and did work out. I don't know why, but anyway, I think I had decent ears.
Yes.
I was always concept strong. I was always conceptually strong. I knew not talented or gifted as a musician, but concepts I was always good at. So we took on that, and then that kind of fell apart because the management who took over the band, which was the girls' brothers, didn't, wanted to take over. We stepped out of it. Bhangra music had come. All the Asian underground, Asian kind of music scene had been lifting.
Yeah.
I went to the Electric Ballroom, saw 2,000 Asian kids pogoing almost at the Electric Ballroom in Leicester Square. I thought, what's this? And saw the music. Didn't really like all the music, but I liked the music. I didn't like the dress sense. It was very failed, kind of Elvis Presley, Gary Glitter kind of vibe and all that. And then we started off Nation Records.
Right. That was it. The birth of Nation Records.
We thought,
Blimey.
we'll take this music, we'll take a bit of other. I started to love a lot of old world music that I'd been brought up on and all that stuff. We just start putting it together. And the first record we did was called Fuse One. And weirdly, of all things, Calvin Singh was recorded on there, first time ever for record. Jah Wobble recorded, Adrian Sherwood, David Harrow, Natasha Atlas.
Fantastic.
It was a compilation.
My God, that was good times, wasn't
And
it?
we had no money. Honestly, Dave, we didn't have no money. We were just getting cheap deals at studios or whatever, credit. And then I took the record to America for the New York seminar. And I was walking around and I let some people listen to it and they just fell in love with it. And I can even remember at that particular time, Africa Bambaataa heard it when we were at the seminar. And you go, you know, what? I can't do the American accent. He goes, I'm going to get you a meeting. And he got me a meeting straight away with Ireland, 4th and Broadway.
Right, fine.
And
Yes.
they called me in the morning, played 4 tracks off the compilation, took me straight into the lawyer's room, pulled out, and by the afternoon I'd signed the label and the record to Island Records, 4th and Broadway.
Blimey.
Which was ironic because I tried to get 4th and Broadway in England to sign the label or help the label or be a part of the label. And they weren't going for it. And then they made a phone call to Warner Chappell in America and just publishing. And there was a Scottish guy running that. And he was like an old gangster.
Yes.
And he loved the record. And we had the publishing. And he signed it up within 2 hours.
My God, that's some. So did you get, was it a good deal you had?
Yeah, at that particular time, we hardly had any money. And I think I came back with, you know, I mean, it was all done properly and legally and everything like that. And we came, I think, I can remember, I don't know, I think I got something like, at that time, which is, you're talking about 1988.
Yes.
You're talking about, I think I'd got 25 grand just for that record.
Blimey. Yes, because they got on their label, they had people like the Dream Warriors, didn't they?
Yeah, they had loads of people.
Marcia Paris. And I think NWA was on that label as well at that stage.
There could have been. I mean, 4th and Broadway was a brilliant label, wasn't it? It had a lot of respect or something like that. And I think, I don't know, did they have...
they had a brilliant song called Brother D and the Collective Effort, How We're Going to Make the Black Nation Rise. I love that song.
Yeah,
so it was good. There was a lot of good 12-inch singles. I suppose dance music was very happening at that stage. So then you and Catherine, Nation Records, did you get an office in London at this stage?
Yeah, well, we'd actually moved into All Saints Road.
Oh, that was very hip and trendy with lots of PR companies.
It wasn't at the time. It was the drug capital of West London.
Oh,
at that particular time.
Yes.
We moved into 19 All Saints Road, which was occupied. Then got occupied slowly by Susie and the Banshees, Sisters of Mercy, Carbon Records, eventually Bad Moon. I don't know.
Yeah, so Anton at Bad Moon.
Anton Brooks. Who had Nirvana, Public Enemy, and all them other, Carter, and all them other bands he had. So that we were in that building, and we just kind of moved from one part in a little, because there used to be a magazine called the Buzz magazine, which was quite a trendy little underground magazine that we'd also kind of been a part of. I wasn't as much as Catherine was part of it.
Right.
Then we moved office and set up the Nation Records and just started to build and get our own little place, and things started to work up. And then we moved down into the basement eventually, and everything was taking off. We had Trans Global Underground. Talvin was a part of it. Talvin was a part of it. Loop Guru, Jah Wobble started to record a few more singles, started to get loads of, and then when Trans Global came in, they came and played me that demo of Templehead.
Yes.
And it was all right, but I did like it, and I said, let's go in the studio with that. And we went in there, and that was it. I mean, I just like I got involved quite a lot in the record from beginning to end, and then put it all together. We put it out, and it was incredible. It just
Yeah.
shot. It shot up, and it was. I think Graham Parks, the DJ or whatever, had played it at the wrong speed, and it sounded fantastic. It was like 90 BPM, and he'd played it almost double speed and accidentally or something, and it sounded fantastic. And and it just became flavour of the underground. So
It was kind of a golden time, really, because there was that. I mean, these were the John Major years, but there was that sort of world of a lot of kind of funky festivals started to appear, wasn't there? The festival circuit, and then that rave culture had started in sort of 88, 89, and then we went into all those kind of massive raves, and people really were looking for lots of different. I don't know.
it was the age of the crusties, wasn't it?
It was the Crusties. Yes, we loved the Crusties,
Yeah,
and
we
there was
loved
and there was Dr. Didge. The Didgeridoo suddenly became very popular, which was fantastic. And then there was Simon, who had that band Working Week, but then went in to do the Afro Celt sound system. So
That's right.
a lot
Yeah.
of people wanted that kind of fusion, wasn't there? But getting completely stoned or tripping, dancing to something which was a bit funky.
Yeah, it was the age of crustiness,
It
maybe.
was, there was, well, because we had the Levellers. Remember,
That's right.
they epitomised Crusty Central at that stage, hadn't they?
Yeah.
They were playing the Glastonbury main stage at one point, and yeah, I mean,
It almost like seemed like this fusion that we were doing was very street, very political. The bands that were coming up were getting asked to play on all these festivals and all that stuff. So they were getting in there, and I mean, Youth used to do remixes for us. Radio Morocco was mixed by Youth. Um, Youth loved the label. There was a lot of talk going on, and I don't know. We just had this great buzz. I mean, everywhere we went, we seemed to like, or every bit of product we put out, the media attention was fantastic.
yes.
I
Well, I
think
suppose,
for the anoraks in media, the people who really do love music and all that stuff, to them it was fantastic. That's what they wanted to write about.
yeah, and there was a lot of magazines coming out. There was like in the 80s there was the three weekly music papers, but then in the 90s there was Select magazine, wasn't there? There was Q magazine. There was various other one. The Face was quite the Face,
Dazed
and
Confused, ID magazine, all this lot was like all happening, wasn't it? It was all like
it was a
interesting.
very, yes, and also there was, I mean, the 80s was so much unemployment and people signing on the dole and job seekers allowance and enterprise allowance schemes, which helped fund a lot of people's musical moment while claiming their weekly or fortnightly check. But the 90s just had a lot more money floating around at one stage as we crept up to Britpop and the whole concept of New Labour, the John Major New Labour period, wasn't there?
Yeah, but we were also very active. I mean, like, believe it or not, I think when I was doing Templehead, uh, when I was mixing it, the the one even called Blur at that time, Damon, they were
Yes.
rehearsing in the studio where we could see them in the studio in front. They were just starting off as well. They were called something else, what Seymour or something.
Seymour, that's it. Yeah, my
Yeah,
God. Remember it well.
so
Yeah,
I've
so
got a
that
good
was
memory. So,
very good. So,
yeah,
but then you started Fundamental.
yeah. So what had happened is, I think we got to around about 91, and I think I'd seen Rage Against the Machine or Public Enemy. Then there used to be that band called the Urban Dance Squad from Belgium.
Yes.
Ofra Haza. I'd seen all these people in New York at the
God,
New
they did.
York.
She did an amazing song with Sisters of Mercy, didn't she?
Yeah. So I'd seen them all in New York, and then I was really influenced by the kind of politics of Rage Against the Machine and also Public Enemy. And I just went, it'd be great to have like an Asian band doing something like this. I came back, I tried to put the idea into Talvin's head, a few other Asian guys who were hanging around, but nobody had the appetite or they didn't really understand it because it took a bit of creativity to understand what's going to happen. And then a promoter at Notting Hill Carnival phoned me up who knew me really well, Wilf Walker. And he goes, "Oh, Aki, there's been one of the bands who was supposed to be on the main stage at Notting Hill Carnival have jumped out. You've got 7-8 days if you want to put this idea of a really political band together," because he knew I always wanted to do that.
Mm-hmm.
"Put it together and I'll give you the slot." And it's like 2:00 in the afternoon. And I said, okay. So I put the phone down, phoned up a couple, 3 people in Bradford, told them to come down. They said, "Well, we'll be down for Wednesday or something." I wrote 8 tracks on the samplers, fresh, new tracks. I just spent all that time programming on Creator or whatever it was at the time, sampling, creating, taking loads of bits and bats and putting them all together. It was like madness. They came down, we just practiced a bit, went on stage at thingy, and the crowd went mental. They fell in love with it, but it was so political that the police tried to arrest us and shut us down.
Right.
And we were playing speeches or bits of, well, we were actually playing speeches of Malcolm X rather than having like 2 seconds, 3 seconds. We'd play nice big 30-second chunks of really, of what they were talking about. And we came off stage and it was mental. People thought we'd be so, when's your next gig? What's the first gig we just played?
Right.
And
My
it just,
God.
honestly, it just worked out. I can even remember meeting the Last Poets.
Oh, yes.
I think it was Jamal, the one who passed away a few years ago. He came up. I'd never heard of Last Poets. I didn't know who they were or whatever. And he just said, I think you should come and support us and things like that when we play gigs. I went, yeah, whatever. And because I love all the politics and things like that. And we just went from there. It just went in, recorded the tracks that I'd made in 2 or 3 days, recorded them, dropped the vocals in, pushed the single out. Media went a bit mental. I think journalists liked us because for a change, they could be a bit more creative in their writing because they had a bit, here was 4 Asian guys. We don't know what religion they are, why they've been so political. The music's a bit crazy. And again, John Peel fell in love with it.
Yes, I would imagine, actually.
John Peel, he started to play us. John Peel fell in love with it. And so, I don't know. I must have done something right throughout my career. But it just worked. And it was all edgy. It wasn't commercial. I wasn't looking for top of the pops or anything. I was just doing things really off-key. And for some reason, it just worked.
Amazing. So then you didn't sign to, so did you bring out most of the stuff on Nation Records?
But I think we did 2 or 3 singles on 3 singles on Nation Records. We brought out, even cassettes were happening at that time. And we brought out cassettes. And then what had happened is the label was taking off, but we didn't have much money.
Right.
We were getting masses of press and everything, media and all that stuff. But we weren't getting the sales. And that's the brutal honesty. We weren't making money. We were just throwing away money for studios and doing everything on the cheap and everything like this. So I went and, for some reason, I got in touch, or somebody got in touch from Beggars Banquet. And I went down to see Martin Mills. And I swear, I knew a lot of people in a lot of big record companies, Virgin, Island, Polygram, whatever, BMG, And I'd gone and asked them, please, fund our label. Nobody would do it. And I went to see Martin Mills. I said, I don't understand. And he said, do you feel you can do something good with it? I said, yeah. He goes, I've been watching everything. If you want to do it, will invest in the label. So they bought into the label Beggars Banquet.
Good
So
move. Yes.
they bought into it, which was quite incredible. They bought into it, and then suddenly they've started to help and put things together and all that stuff. And suddenly all the bands that we had started to go out into Europe, and they were on Play It Again, Sam, in Europe, and Mushroom Records or whatever in different territories. And honestly, everybody, all the bands were buzzing in some shape or form. There was a lot of TV going on. Obviously, Fundamental were creating a lot of controversy. And then I went off and I had made this video in Pakistan with the original members. You'll probably start laughing. And we come back and they decided to leave the band. So maybe it is me. Right? Maybe it is me. But they wouldn't tell me why.
Oh, no.
I said, we haven't got the deal. Martin Mills just actually, without signing a piece of paper, he knew that we had to, because the single was getting radio airplay, daytime or evening time on Radio 1. And I wanted to make a video really quickly. And I thought, let's do one in Pakistan because nobody's ever done it. And I'd done a documentary in Pakistan a year before, which was an incredible place for a cameraman. And Martin Mills just gave me the money and said, okay, go do it and we'll sort out a deal when you come back. When I came back, the bloody band, the two members had left. Tried to get hold of them. We had a massive tour, the chart show, if you remember the chart show.
Yes, absolutely.
It had gone up to number 7, Countryman video. And these two guys had left, but me and Dave, Martin Mills said, can you carry on? And I said, yeah, I'll pull it off. I'll get some other people, but it'll take a bit of time because I want to choose the right people. I can't have the wrong people. And Martin Mills just stood behind me all the time. And, I got a few accusations which were all proved later on. It all looked good in print, but later on, everything was proved wrong with that. I think they'd just gone off their heads. The guys in the singer and the tabla player.
Right.
Because when they went to Pakistan, they started to do too much
stuff. Yes.
And they picked it up from the streets and everything. And they shouldn't have done. I mean, and we'd gone there with David Simpson from the Melody Maker, which if you read the interview, if you read the piece, it's fantastic. It was like madness for him. Anyway, so we started to work with some other hip hoppers, rappers, and then we came across MC Mushtaq and this guy called Hot Dog Dennis. They were fantastic. Got in the studio, did Seize the Time album. Seize the Time album came out, straight up, like, it went up the charts really high, or in indie charts anyway.
Yes. And
the media was fantastic on it, absolutely mental on it. And it just, again, suddenly we did a video for Dog Tribe, Goldberger, MTV banned them. We kept on getting banned, but the media would write about the bannings.
Yeah.
But suddenly you were getting more media. The more they banned you, the more media you'd get.
Yes, well, and were you starting to tour at this stage? Were you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, we'd. When the two guys left, I think within 2 weeks of coming back, we did a massive tour with Transglobal Underground, Loop Guru, Hustlers, Joy, all these nation bands. There was a big tour lined up, so we all went on tour together. But there was only me and Dave from the band, and because we didn't have time to find anybody else.
Yes.
So we just did the tour as more of an instrumental, and there's dropping in on vocals now and again. It was a bit hard. It was a bit difficult. We weren't. I thought because I always loved what we'd done musically, which never got really any critique.
Right.
So it was always the politics, but I always thought that the music matched the interest in the band.
Right.
Does that make sense? It's almost like creatively the band was interesting. Lyrically, whatever politically you want to talk about, but musically, there were the base and the foundation of what they were putting together. If you get time, have a listen and go, oh, yeah, actually, some really interesting musical aspects happening here. So I had that concept in my mind and I was putting that in. And there was even humour in the compositions, which a lot of people didn't recognise, but I was putting it in. And but see, as the time came, and everywhere around the world, people started, all the Beggars Banquet had signed me up. He hadn't messed around with the deal, Martin. He said, I'll give you exactly the same deal I was going to give you when the other two were in. I said, fine. And then we just worked the deal. Martin was fantastic. And we just started kicking everywhere across the world. I mean, everybody, we were doing concerts left, right, and centre, Glastonbury, Phoenix, Reading. I mean, there was no. I mean, we were perceived as an Asian band, but really we were like a kind of Afro-Caribbean stroke Asian. It was really half now. But we had didgeridoo players and dole players and things like this. So it was quite a diverse band, but it was always projected as, I don't know why, some people projected as a Muslim band, which we weren't really. I mean, like we talked about it because people asked us. That's only why we talked about it. But we were into the kind of racism and politics of talk. We wanted to talk about things like that. And it was just taking off everywhere.
Well, was there a lot of pressure on the follow-up album at this point to sort of...
No, there was no... well, we did the instrumental that was going back to I wanted the music to be recognised. That was called With Intent to Pervert the Cause of Injustice.
Yes.
Yeah, we put that out. And then the next one is Erotic Terrorism, is it?
Let's have a look. Yes. So that was... And did you go to South Africa as well at that point?
Yeah. That's why I forgot about you today, because I got a phone call from South Africa. Prophets of the City have just been awarded a big award for all their contribution to music and during the apartheid years and everything. And they phoned me up and it's being presented to them tomorrow. And they phoned me up today to say, oh, Aki, you need to do something to video.
Yes.
I said, I'm not very good at speeches, man. Don't tell me. No, we want something. So I spent all day going mental trying to do that. And then they wanted loads of media, press. I was putting all that together today.
Crikey.
I forgot about.
Well, I'm not surprised. That was a lot to think about.
Yeah, I had to go through all of old files of Nation and scan stuff in, and I was going a bit mental. So we were the first band to go to South Africa just as Nelson got into power.
Right, my God. Because I remember, was it Little Steve? He did a song, Sun City, didn't he, in the 80s? I remember.
Yeah, that was a great song as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So we went across there. It was, honestly, it was mad. You can read some of the reviews. I think it was Hip Hop or some magazine went with us. They wrote about 8 pages. And that's where we met Prophets of the City.
Right.
Who were doing a video in Soweto, and they invited us up because they'd heard of Fundamental and everything, which is really bizarre because if you watch their video, Never Again, before we even got to them, they'd already been following Fundamental from South Africa. They've got posters on the wall of Dog Tribe and things like this. So they really loved what Fundamental were talking about. Anyway, we met them, they did their video, and then they made me listen to one of their tracks, Never Again. I was just blown back by it. But I brought it back after the mad trip in South Africa. I mean, like, we almost got killed a couple of times because we drove right out into the sticks. So you could still smell the stench of apartheid.
Yes.
All there. It was still there. Mandela had come in, but they hadn't dismantled it. And as soon as you drove outside the cities, you'd see the AWB, all the, driving around in big trucks with guns and things. Because at that time, that guy was really famous, the Boer guy. He was riding high in power, against Mandela or whatever. And anyway, we came back and I took the record and the video. They just finished the video with us in it. Fundamental are in the Never Again video. Took it down to Martin Mills and I said, I love this band. They're absolutely amazing. He heard the record, went, this is fantastic. Saw the video, this is even more fantastic. He said, I'll give you all the money. You bring them across and sign them to Nation. But you direct them and get them all right. So we brought them across, all of them. It wasn't the biggest deal. There was no glamour, no glitter, no limousines, no Gucci bags or anything like that. But they were committed, great people, lived it rough. And then they started to do a lot of work here.
Yes.
Supporting James Brown, supporting all the hip-hop bands that were coming to England and getting a lot of great stuff on TV. And the only problem we didn't have a problem with them, it's because American-dominated hip-hop was so strong. At that time, you couldn't even get a British hip-hop rapper off the ground because, Booyah Tribe were in, NWA was in, Public Enemy, all them mad bands were all in. And so the South African hip-hop or rap didn't stand a chance because it wasn't being supported by Radio 1 or whoever the hip-hop DJs were at the time.
Yes.
Everybody was supporting the American-style hip-hop.
Yeah, it was very strong. I remember in the 80s, there was a label called Street Sounds by Morgan Khan.
Morgan Khan, yeah, I know.
And they were great compilations, and occasionally they'd have a compilation of British hip-hop, and it was, it wasn't quite, this was in the 80s, it wasn't quite as exciting as the American stuff, but I think there was a bit of a fashion, wasn't there, still in the 90s, thinking, if it came from England, it's not that great, or British.
Yeah, that's what, I think even French rap was being accepted more than British hip hop.
Oh yes, God! But there was I can't remember who they are, but they just had a sexy vocal. You didn't know what they were singing about. It could have been anything, but they were very. You wanted to like them because you wanted to appear sophisticated and cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a fashion.
As we talk about it, I'm beginning to think, there was so much things going on and.
Yes, well, it was also, this great celebration of Britishness as well, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I remember Vanity Fair had that magazine cover with, I think, Liam Gallagher and Patsy Kensit, in bed with the Union Jack suddenly got embraced, didn't it?
That was the Britpop thing, really, wasn't it?
Yes, but then, as you mentioned, the crusty thing, everything that is the sort of world sound fusion, world music. I know people hate that term, but you go in the record shops and you go to your sort of Lady Smith Black Mambo's.
Oh yeah.
And all, because Paul Simon had come along, and for me, John Peel had played people like the Bundu Boys and the Four Brothers and Thomas McFumo and all those people. And then Paul Simon did his album Gracelands, and that opened up all these artists that you were kind of curious with. So by the 90s, and there was Peter Gabriel's Real World Studios, and WOMAD had appeared, hadn't they? So it all felt like...
John Peel was even pushing the whole Bhangra thing before anybody else on Radio 1. And when I did Erotic Terrorism, there was a track on there called Jar Shaitan. That track was actually written for Nusrat Fateh Ali.
Oh, God, we loved that, didn't we?
Yeah. Must.
Yes.
Massive Attack, yeah. But that track was written for Nusrat Fateh Ali and Pavarotti. And I actually went to Bath for a meeting with Peter Gabriel
Yes.
studio, and I took that track, and Peter Gabriel fell in love with the track, and he said, "Oh, I want to try my vocal on this track." And to be honest, his vocal wasn't working on it. I remember in the studio going, "Why is he trying? I just want Nusrat." And I needed somebody like Pete Gabriel to pull Pavarotti in, and we'd get this record with Nusrat Fateh Ali and Pavarotti doing a collaboration.
Yes.
And I actually recorded the track. It was already finished, but I was working in the studio with Pete Gabriel. And it was just, I didn't know too much about him.
No.
For some reason. I knew he was famous and big time and all that stuff, but he really took to the track. But anyway, after that, well, he goes, "Okay, I'm going to check out Nusrat, check out Pavarotti and all that stuff." And obviously he was busy and all that stuff. But by the time not too long after Nusrat died.
Yes.
Yeah, or whatever, and then Pavarotti died. But all the people at WOMAD, they would all come down to Nation Records to spend the day at Nation Records because they knew they were doing kind of uncontaminated world music, but we were contaminated, and they wanted to kind of like get a grip on why we were doing so well at that time, not in sales, but in creative attention. And they used to come down, and a couple of bands ended up on WOMAD on the label,
right?
On their label from us anyway.
Blimey.
Joy ended up. We put out the first Joy records, and then they ended up with World. What was it called?
Real World.
Real World. That's it.
That's the one.
Nick Dubula from Transglobal Underground went across to Real World.
Right.
Did his thing with them. I think TJ Remy did some Real World publishing. He was on Nation. I think Natasha Atlas was being pushed across there. There was a lot of, but honestly, there was just so much. Sometimes people say, "Oh, Aki, you did this and you did that and you did this." I don't remember, man. I can't remember. I must have been so active here, there. I used to go into studios and stay there for 3 days, just getting records ready and then editing and then mastering and doing things and all that stuff, but also playing live with Fundamental and videos, and there was just so much. I can't believe where I must have got the energy from.
Well, I know the 90s. It was a very exciting time. So how does this decade play out in the end with both the label and Fundamental? Because obviously you're sort of going at it full, on both channels, which is quite unusual. I don't think many other people have ever done that. It's like being a player manager for a football club, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Afro-Celt sound system, didn't you? And all that stuff.
Yes.
Now, I'll tell you something, what was really interesting, I'm not making any big claim, but a lot of creative ideas that we were doing in Fundamental, slowly but surely, them creative ideas that we were introducing live into Fundamental were slowly going towards, like, Johnny Calcy ended up with the Afro-Celt sound system. He came to us, went to Transglobal, then he ended up in Afro-Celt. There was other drummers, there was other people. I actually took it upon myself because I knew that what Nusrat had done with Pete Gabriel was brilliant, but they hadn't done enough live work with it. So I started to look into, why don't Fundamental are kind of buzzing at the moment, take advantage and get some real Qawwali singers from Pakistan. And I started to work with another Qawwali great called Aziz Mia, which, if you check him out, he was the don of Qawwali. He was far deeper than him, and Nusrat were on the same level.
Right.
But Aziz Mia was the darkness of Qawwali. He was like, everybody just went mental with his thought processes and all that stuff. And we got him in from Pakistan. He came here, started to play live gigs with him. He's from my dad and mum's time.
Wow.
He was actually locked up and banned by General Zia in Pakistan for making a song which was called, translated, it's called I'm an Alcoholic. And I think he was put in prison for making that song. But he was a legend, like a real serious legend. Nusrat Fateh Ali, Sabri brothers, Aziz Mia, I think them three were the masters of Qawwali. So we started to work with Aziz Mia going live. Did that was fantastic. Then as I went along and we got to the Fundamental album, then Nusrat had died, and I went off and linked up with his nephews, which is Rizwan and Muazzam Kawal. And they came and I did some recording with them in Pakistan, some really intense recording. Then I went to South Africa and I was working with some singers from Ladysmith, Blacksmith or what.
Yeah.
Working with some of their backing singers. And I recorded loads of stuff in South Africa, brought it back here, mixed it, made it harder, made it more clubbier, made it whatever. But I never diluted what they were doing. I always try to fix my madness to their beauty.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to compromise their beauty. So we're doing all that stuff. Everything is going well. I mean, we're still getting new bands and everything. There was one aspect which wasn't being taken care of. All the bands, the movement, the scene or whatever was playing live, was doing great videos, was doing good music, putting out good stuff and everything. But we didn't have a platform on Radio 1. We kept on going back to Radio 1. I went with Martin Mills once. He took me to Radio 1 because he knew them all. And he said, we need to give Nation Records and give Aki a radio show.
Yes.
And they said, okay, well, we'll think about it. Now, this was 5 years before Bobby Friction and Nihal got their show on Radio 1 for the Asian Underground. This was 5 years before. So by the time they came, things started to go down for the work. There was no new bands coming. Asian Dub Foundation had gone off to London Records, right? So we didn't lose them because we didn't own them anyway. It was up to them. They stayed or they went.
Yeah.
They had some issue with Nation. We never knew what it was, as usual. Nobody ever tells you to your face. But they then pretended that their first album with London Records was Rafi's Revenge.
Right.
But we'd done Facts and Fictions. And we'd done really well with them in France on Virgin Records because Nation was linked to Virgin. And they were cooking. They were on the way up in France. And but when they signed to London, they brought out that new album and they just totally, for whatever reason, I don't know, somebody'd have to ask them because they still haven't acknowledged it properly, why they ignored their first album, Facts and Fictions, on Nation. However, that album has sold immensely well over the years, even though they haven't promoted it. I just carried on. Transglobal went to BMG, come back, went to Deconstruction, came back, went to Sony and came back. Every time they went there, they just came back, and we kept on doing really well with them as well, because we weren't, we were just driven. We weren't controlling, just saying, we could smell if you're doing something false.
Yes.
Being sincere with your music. For some reason, I could do that. I could listen to a track and say, is this done with a bit of passion? I don't know. Maybe I'm disillusioned, whatever. But I could always feel when there was sincerity in the music and the art and the brainwaves going into the music or whatever. And that's what all the bands were encouraged to do. But because we didn't get that radio airplay, and then by the time Bobby Friction and Nihal came in, it was it was already on a downhill spire.
Yes.
It was, you know, all the beauty, all the great bits had been done. All the great music which should have been played, whether it was Asian Dub Foundation, Transglobal, all that stuff which should have been played on Radio 1, even in the evenings, a lot more than it was being doing. When, you know, John Peel can't play. John Peel released records with just Nation Records,
Yes.
Strange Fruit.
Yes, I know. They were great collections, actually.
Yeah.
Beautifully packaged. Oh, my God. So then, as we navigated the millennium and the next decade, how are you then sort of juggling all those kind of commitments? Are you keeping it together at this stage?
Yeah, I'm keeping it together, but it seems to be that when I'm hearing stuff, I'm not hearing a progression. I'm hearing a copying of what's already we've done. You know, if I could, I'd encourage you to, you know, listen to some of the Nation records, some of the first lot and everything, which you're talking about 1988 onwards,
Yes.
all that stuff. And then we got into the 2000s, and I wanted to hear something fresh and new, and either the next generation coming up and all that. And but the I think the landscape of what artists wanted to do at that particular time was not the same as creatively going forward. Nitin Sawhney had come in, Talvin had been in, but he vanished because really what Nitin Sawhney did, Talvin could have done and should have done and easily done, and he was there well before it. You know, we were doing the Blue Note before Anoka, 4 or 5 years before Anoka.
Yes.
So, and I think that people were not helping each other, to be brutally honest. Like Asian Dub Foundation were doing well, but they weren't taking any bands with them. Our lot, whenever we did anything fundamental, if we were doing really well, we'd always take somebody with us, a support band or whatever, always helping people. I don't think they had the same concept. You know, the movement. I was always into movements, not into particular one band. You know, if I would have spent more time on fundamental, maybe I could have really pushed it a bit more or whatever. But we'd travelled the whole world. I was doing documentaries, or there were so many people from Europe and different parts of the world coming across, and I was never not busy. I was always doing documentaries or doing interviews or putting out records or in the studio or looking at concepts and all that stuff. I was always, I mean, I'm still hectic to a
Yes.
large degree. But I think it was the fact that there wasn't, I was waiting to hear something new coming to Nation Records, and I wasn't getting it. Too much stuff sounded like other stuff. And I don't know if you've looked into it, but we also have this label called Flow.
Yes.
Right. If you ever get a chance, listen to it. And we started to do even madder stuff on Flow. Really, like, you know, I don't know. Somebody said, I'd never heard of Aphex Twin or whatever, but we're doing mad electronic stuff. Like really like messed up. So the creativity's always been around.
Yes.
But I think it was basically because I wasn't getting the creativity coming. And I thought, well, I'm spending so much time with everybody else doing their records, helping them, producing them, doing this, editing, doing this. I might as well just do my own creativity, make my own records. And also, you know, I'm getting beats and putting them on other people's records. I'm doing it for them. I'm not being, you know, I started to feel a bit slightly undervalued.
Right.
I was doing stuff for people, obviously it was coming out on my record label, but then I thought, but I've wrote all this stuff for them. I've put them in that direction, and I don't get anything. What's the point? I might as well put all that energy into Fundamental. So I transmitted it. I mean, obviously I did that album All Is War, which created a lot of trouble and all that stuff, and and that took me a long time to make.
Yes.
I think musically, I think it's an absolute fantastic bit of work. Politically is another debate.
Yes.
That's another 3-hour session.
How did you navigate that kind of when things like that sort of blow up?
To be honest, somebody might say, "Oh, Aki really knows what he's doing," or whatever. I didn't. I just took it on the chin. Whenever anybody was challenging me or talking to me or wanting to do some, I mean, it got very intense. I'll be brutally honest. Suddenly, I got a phone call. I can remember on Sunday morning. Somebody said, Roy Hattersley on the Heaven and Earth program just said that you should be arrested. He was a journalist from the BBC, and she was a good friend of mine. And she said, Aki, you better sort yourself out. You might get arrested by the afternoon.
Right.
And I went, are you serious? I said, yeah. You said it on the show, Heaven and Earth. I got up and what's going on here? And then, sorry, that was on the Sunday. But on the Friday, I woke up in the morning, 8 o'clock, and my phone was going mental because The Guardian had just done almost 2/3 of a page on the album. And my phone went mental. And I was getting phone calls every 2 or 3 minutes on my mobile. I didn't know what was going on. I hadn't read The Guardian piece and all that stuff. And it got quite scary. That the next week and a half was very scary because I was walking through the streets and you'd get all these builders on scaffolding, but you're fucking whatever they wanted,
Yeah.
We saw you in your bastard and all that stuff, and then the rest of the band. I mean, Dave, who was in the band, he wasn't even living here; he was living in Tenerife or something, and. Everybody went to ground. They all put the helmets on and went in the trenches. And I was left to deal with everything. And I just had this really good friend, an Ethiopian friend, bless him, Dawit. He had a lot of issues, mental issues, but he stood by me and started taking all the phone calls. We're getting phone calls from New Zealand, Africa, South America, CNN, all these massive broadcasters, and it was just going mental. And I had no management, no backup. Beggars Banquet were a bit pissed off with me at that time for doing that album or whatever. They'd bailed out, so I had no backup there. It was just me and this guy called Dawit. and Sky, BBC, radios ringing me up, and it was really intense. And then there was all this thing going on about getting arrested. And I'd be walking down the street and you'd see a police car, a van full of guys, and they'd be looking at you and they knew who you were and all. But anyway, I just went, I can either hide or I can go and face the issues. And I just went, fuck it, be punk.
Right.
Face the issues. So I just went and faced BBC Breakfast, Michael Gove giving me a hard time. I'm giving him a hard time. Going on BBC Radio, World Series, everywhere. Sky News talking bullshit, trying to present this track as one-dimensional, and it's not. It's three-dimensional. It's three bombers. And for me, the scientist was the worst of the bomber. Because he contribute and all that stuff. I mean, and this was no excuse. It was quite an intelligent record, I thought, anyway. And if you go back to it and lyrically listen to it, I think it still is. But yeah, it was a hard time. and it was a difficult time. It wasn't easy. I wasn't wallowing in glamour or thinking, yeah, everybody knows. It was a very, very difficult time. And honestly, I was mostly, other than Dawit, the guy, I was completely by myself.
Easy, crazy. That is, God, that's a hard one to deal with, isn't it?
Yeah.
To sleep at night. My God. Yes. And once that finished, how did you, or that little episode eventually closes, where do you go next in the next kind of part of that decade and into the next?
So that was around about 2006, 7, 8. We were still getting a few gigs. We were doing documentaries and things like that. Then I think in 2008, I mean, I'd gone off to Bosnia to make a documentary about the Balkans War.
Yeah.
And because we were, again, the first band to go into the Balkans when the war just had finished. And I'd actually seen what the war had done to Sarajevo and all that stuff. And I'd made that documentary all about the Srebrenica genocide and all that stuff, what was going down. I spent about 6, 7 months there. And I quite liked making documentaries. Then I was asked by, I don't know if you remember, Yvonne Ridley.
Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
The journalist.
Yes.
She got kidnapped by a Taliban. Well, I knew her when she came back from Afghanistan. I was actually the first person to interview her. She hadn't converted or anything. She was still Yvonne Ridley. And she loved what we were about, fundamental before. And but anyway, she asked me to come with her to go break the siege of Gaza.
Right.
2008. So, and she goes, but if you come, Aki, you could be killed. And I can get shot on the water. At that time, nobody had broken the siege by the sea. And I said, fine, let's just do it. But the beauty about it was that there was Holocaust survivors going on this trip with us. It's on YouTube. You can watch the film. It's called To Gaza with Love.
Right.
So I had the Bosnia film, which was called A Painful Peace, which is on YouTube as well. Then I did this. I directed, camera, presented, everything, produced, made the contacts and all that stuff. I really enjoyed making them documentaries. And we went to Gaza and we broke the siege. And it was mental. If you watch the film, you'll just go, I actually thought again I was going to die. And I got shit scared. There's nothing to kind of go, oh, look at me, I've done this. Because I was actually genuinely shitting my pants.
Well, I'm not surprised.
The IDF had come onto the sea when we were on the ship and they were pointing lights at us. And I thought, you've got nowhere to run.
No.
They're just going to, and you're in the Mediterranean, there's nothing around you. That's it. So I've done that. And then somebody had asked me to go do the documentary about the Arab Spring.
Right. My God.
So I went off and did that. That was a mad nightmare and all that stuff. Then somebody asked me to go and do a documentary on Guantanamo prisoners who had been released. So I went across Europe and then I went to Kuwait and Qatar and Afghanistan, on the borders of Afghanistan and things like this. And I met up loads of them, talked to them, and it was really incredible. But I learned a lot. I learned that out of all the people I met, only a small percentage were actually genuine, concerned people about human rights and everything. Only a few of them. The rest of them were just as mad as any skinhead that I'd met or, got beaten up by in my life or whatever. They were just thugs. So that kind of I met about 40 of them, and I'd say that at least 30 of them were just mad. They were just thugs. 10 of them were absolutely fantastic. They would have stuck up for anybody, Muslim or not Muslim.
Yes.
Justice and all that stuff. They were the genuine thing. So, and I went to places I shouldn't have gone. You know, I had to do it. I had to sneak there and meet people, especially on the borders of Pakistan. If I would have got caught by the Pakistan security services or whatever, I could have been in serious trouble. So I did that, but it gave me a great learning experience. So I came back and then I just thought, well, I don't want to be working with many other bands anymore. I can't put people's records out. I don't want to be doing it. Let me just get on with this. So then I did that album called The Philosophy of Nothing.
Right.
I don't know.
Oh, yes, I've got it on 2015.
Yeah, Philosophy of Nothing. So I did that, which, again, if you look at the lyrics and the music and all that stuff, you'll see there's some kind of like weird changes in perspectives, because we were never ever part of any kind of particular political thought. We were always, we were always flexible about our political thoughts. So I did a philosophy of nothing, and if you're good at listening to it all, you'll find, Aki must have been, it's kind of changing. He's changing his output on certain things. He's almost like trusting nobody, nothing anymore. He don't believe in a lot of things and all that stuff. And I was kind of like seeing through the cracks of everybody's philosophies and even religions, and, you know, whether it was punk or not, I didn't care. I started to see through the cracks of things, and so I did that album, and I think by then, because I wasn't working with many bands and all that stuff, I just like Nation was like just becoming a great catalogue of work, what had gone on, and but I couldn't. I mean, I never saw anything that I thought, yeah, I want that on Nation. During that time, if I would have seen things, I was still very active, clubbing, going out, seeing bands and all that stuff. But I never saw anything which really like thingy. And then as far as Fundamental's concerned, we ended up supporting Prodigy,
right,
in Croatia. So we went on stage, did our gig, fantastic. I came off, Prodigy came on, and I watched them, and I just went, what this is their whole sound, stage, the power, the madness, the tribalism, or whatever. I just went, hacky man. This is the first time I've seen a band live that I thought, wow, I'd love to be in that band. You know, and I thought, this is brilliant. This is absolutely amazing. That if this is the level, I'll have to notch up a lot of notches to get Fundamental to be musically, and I'm talking now, musically to be as clean and powerful and thingy that it almost like it's a good thing and a bad thing in that it made me think, unless you're going to now push Fundamental to this big level of sounding absolutely awesome, and right, don't do it. Don't do it anymore. Don't do any more gigs until it's that.
Right.
And then afterwards, you know, I started to play guitar and all that stuff, first time ever in my life. And I thought, no, I want to go on and conceptually do Fundamental, but do it in a very different way. And I've just been kind of stuck in that area. And I just refused to do stuff again. Last somebody phoned up, do you want to do anything? No, I don't want to. Last year. And, it was this year, actually.
Right, God.
And I said, no, I don't want to do anything. I'll only do it if I really feel it. And I'm not feeling it, and until I'm working with the right people. And then I come up to this Dave, DJ, who was with me all them years. He died last year. David Watts.
Right, yes, got you.
Last October. That knocked me, that really hurt and was painful. I spent 12, of, 12 days before he died with him. Then I came back and I just went, I need to do something creative. And I've been sat on this Son of Punk idea, the album Son of Punk.
Yes.
And I just went mental. I just went in the studio, and it took me about 3-4 months, put the whole album together, not still all, started to work with Otis, who was Sarah Jane Morris's son, and Dave Coulter,
Yes.
who worked with Yoko. And I don't know if you know Dave Coulter. He's done some great stuff, Test Department, Yoko, Pogues. He'd done all that stuff. It was his son. And he wanted his son to work with me because I'd met Dave when we worked with Talvin.
Right.
And Dave only reminded me 5 days ago. He said, Aki, you gave me my break down at the Blue Note when you picked me up and told me to go and work with Talvin, because I think he was playing Didgeridoo at the time. And I played with Talvin, and then I started to do all my other stuff. So, but he also knew I was a teetotaler, if that makes sense. And his son was on a bit of a road of a bit unsure, going,
Yeah.
swinging. And he said, I want him to work with you, not with anybody who's doing anything, because it'll only encourage you. So I got together with him, and I spent about 4 or 5 days doing his vocals. He left, got out of the picture. I put the whole album together and released it. And it's out there. It just come out in October, end of October, I think, middle of October. And just working that. And that's when I got in touch with Push.
Right. So
I sent him the album. He said he didn't really like it, and then he said he listened to it again and fell in love with it.
And you do a version of Holiday in Cambodia.
Yeah, I wanted to do the Dead Kennedys, and I thought, now shall I do it the same speed or a bit slower, a bit slower, a bit slower? I thought, no, I'm going to take it right down to make it, 40 BPM. And if the record got released on vinyl or whatever, or CD, they can always bump up the BPMs as much as they want. They can go even at 100. I think Holiday in Cambodia is about 160 or something, 80. If they want to go up to 160, it'll still sound good.
Yes.
Mental. So that, and because I've always loved that track. I've always loved the guitar work and the drums and of Holidays in Cambodia. It's just always shock. That and Sonic Reducer is it the Dead Boys?
Yes, it is.
Sonic Reducer. I've always loved them two tracks. The speed of them and I don't know, there's some kind of like perfection in the madness of them.
Yes. Because it was interesting, because I was listening to the album, I could hear those lyrics thinking, God, they sound familiar. And then it's like, oh, yes, I remember now.
Yeah. So,
it's kind of, there's some records, there's some either riff or there's some lyric that it's just timeless. Somehow it's always going to be there.
Yeah. Well, I think Dead Kennedys and all, especially they as a band, politically and socially, they're going to be relevant forever, really.
Yes, this is all true. So are you keeping Nation Records going for this project that you're doing while managing the catalogue?
Yeah, because I'm still, weirdly, Beggar's Banquet, after that album, which caused a lot of trouble, after a few months, they did resign, the directors.
Right.
They did resign. But what can I say?
Why did they resign?
They were scared that at that particular time, they thought that their company Beggar's Banquet might get done for supporting terrorism or something.
Right.
So a lot of businesses at that particular time, TV, all that madness was going on after 7/7 or whatever.
Yes.
And laws were being brought in. And even I can remember businesses were being put under the microscope, creative businesses, and they were scared that their whole the whole of Beggars Banquet might get into trouble.
Right.
So they actually loved the album because I'd given it to them 3 or 4 months before. And I had the evidence in emails that they'd come back to me and say, "This is fantastic. This is great. What's this about? What's that about? What's this about? This is just incredible," and all that stuff. And then I think somehow when The Guardian got it and presented it as it did, I think I understand they had to bail out, or else they'd have to take down somebody could pull the plug on Beggars. But what happened is a few months later, they did resign, and then we had a meeting and everything. And Martin Mills loves me. I love Martin Mills. And he just said, "Aki, look, we'll carry on working with all the catalogue, but we're not working on this album." And I said, "That's fine." He goes, "Because what are you going to do?" And I said, "No, I need you. I need Beggars Banquet. You carry on, do all that stuff. I'll carry on and all that stuff." And to be brutally honest, if they hadn't helped me, if they hadn't got still be involved with me, they just take a percentage. They're like a distributor.
Yeah.
But they work a lot of the catalogue and get it on all the right platforms. I don't have to do much. Just make sure I give them the right information, and then they put it out on all the globally. But I have to now do my own promotion, do my own marketing and all that stuff, which is fine. I mean, that's all changed anyway, because of the internet. So I'm still there with them.
God, that's beautiful.
So, and I've got a lot of time for Beggars Banquet. I mean, when I did this album, somebody said to me, "Well, why do you take it to them and take it to him?" And I said, "I can't work with anybody but Beggars Banquet. It's just something easy for me. It's not, I don't have to be aware of anything or be paranoid of anything, or if say something good happens, I know that I can go in and say, well, something good has happened. Can you kind of see me a bit more right than the deal that you gave me?"
Right.
And I also know that if good things don't happen, they've lost something. So I shouldn't be an arsehole, and I should respect them for help,
Yes.
Because not everything Beggars Banquet releases, I mean, they invest a lot of money in projects which will never even, are just wasted money.
Yes.
But nobody talks about that aspect, do they? So I've got a lot of time for Beggars Banquet, and only time for Beggars Banquet, really.
Well, that's a great thing. So looking ahead then to 2026, have you got anything else on the horizon?
Okay, so the last 3 or 4 months has been really good for me because I've had to kind of reconfigure my brain in how the internet and the new way of promoting things works, how to promote. So creatively, I will be doing stuff, absolutely. When it comes to the promotion and all that stuff, the only thing is, am I willing to sacrifice 24/7 of my time on computers, sitting down,
Yeah.
put it there, put it. That's the only thing I'm not too sure about. It's not me.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have to either find somebody who's dedicated and knows that thing, and I don't have to think about it. And I'm quite happy just to be purely creative in the studio, deliver things really quickly. You can get things out as you finish them on the internet. That's the beauty about it.
Yes.
And I just want to be honest, I've got this real bad kind of addiction to creativity. and now I'm going, I want to be creative. I just want to go back in the studio. I want to be writing. But what I have done is in the last few months, I've updated the Nation Records YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, because I made a documentary, More Punk Than Punk. I don't know.
Right. No.
That's been shown at Portobello Festival this Thursday.
Punk then punk. God. My
It's called,
God.
the word punk keeps coming in, doesn't it? Some of-
Yes, it's. There is. Yes, I've got the trailer here.
yeah, More Punk Than Punk. That just got finished a couple of months ago. So it's been shown at 2 festivals. It's gone down really well.
Yes. My God, you have been very busy, isn't it? It says
Yeah,
here, about time, need a full documentary about Nation Records. In the comments. So yes, so Nation Records will need a book, won't it?
I need something there. So I've done that documentary. That's good. And I'm just kind of catching up with some work that I didn't do. COVID time was brilliant for me because it was the first time in my life for a long time where I didn't have to do anything. And I actually didn't do anything. And I'd got caught. I'd been traveling to Pakistan and I was going to make a documentary, but COVID hit there and I got trapped there for 8 months, 7 months.
Right.
I couldn't get out. But the beauty of it was that I could contemplate things and everything. And I really enjoyed the whole restrictions in COVID where I wasn't
Right.
allowed to do anything because it suddenly made me think about a lot more things and also helped me creativity-wise, think about things. And I only really got kicked back into action at the pain of Dave dying
Right.
last year. That kind of gave me a big slap on the face.
Did it make you realise that time is very precious?
Yeah. But it made me realise also that, like, I spent 30 years with him. We never had an argument, never, and he stood by me when we split up in Pakistan. He stood
Right.
by me, he knew what the truth of everything was and all that. He'd sacrificed a lot because he used to work at Virgin Records. He used to be the PR for Ice-T, Massive Attack and all them lot. And he just gave it all up for Fundamental.
Right.
And anyway, we travelled all the world together and everything. And we hadn't met for a couple of years. And he was then going down, he was doing his own music. And then when he passed away, his music's all sat there. Nothing, there's nothing else. So I just kind of like thought, okay, the best thing you can do, Aki, it's all sat in his computer. So the best thing you can do, Aki, is make sure everything that you've done is out in the universe.
Yes.
Make sure all your documentaries are out. Make sure all your interviews are out. Make sure all the nation, I've got about 15, 20 boxes of media in there that I only opened up the scanner today of all nation bands, Transglobal, Talvin, Natasha, Prophecy, all of them. And I thought, Aki, my job right now is to make sure that all these people who had great press, great media, did fantastic stuff, they're not asking for it to be done, but it's my duty to make sure that we put it out in the universe and it's there. It's there forever. That's it.
Yes. Well, we do love archiving, I have to say. This is very important in life.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it, it's just going to go in landfill.
No one else is going to do it.
No one will appreciate all that.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I quite like Cherry Red Records, because they're quite good at those compilations and collections. And it's a bit like, we'll do it now because no one's going to do it in the future. And this is the
Well,
one.
they've been a great success, haven't they? Cherry Red.
Yes. So
Didn't they sign up? The Cult? I think they were signing up the Cult to do something with the Cult.
well, they might be. I mean, they do have the occasional new release, actually. They do the maths and think, well, they'll sell. It's a bit like cooking vinyl records. I think
That's right. Yeah,
they
Cult
realise
Line.
that they can get enough sales and it'll be, fine for them. They might strike lucky, but they won't lose too much if it's a bit of a flop.
Mm.
But yeah, my God.
But I've still got this. See, the problem with me is that Cooking Vinyl and Cherry Red, the people who do it. I mean, I don't know if they're they play or do music or create anything. But what's more important than the label and the business is the creativity.
Mhm.
I need to be creative. I need to make music. I have to do it.
Yes, well, it's a good curse, but
Yeah.
just curious, what happened to your older brother and your parents?
Okay. So my parents. Eventually, my dad came round to see Southern Death Cup play. And we played in front of about 2,500 people. He came down and he stood and he watched. And then I woke up in the morning. And I said, "What did you think, Dad?" He said, "Get rid of the singer. He's shit." That's Ian Asbury.
Right, so
Right?
yes.
He then, as I started to form, as I went to New York and I started to get into Malcolm X and everything, I didn't realize. But my dad was he was a political animal, and he loved the People's Party of Pakistan and everything. And he's of that generation, which was kind of slightly a weird combination, slightly Islamic, slightly communist, socialist, blah, blah, blah. They wanted progressive. So I used to go to America bringing back tapes of Malcolm X, and he knew everything about Che Guevara, Malcolm X. We'd never talked about that at any point in our life.
Right.
We both got on really well. We used to discuss a lot of stuff. He then passed away. He passed just after, in 91 actually, just as I was making a documentary. Fundamental had already started, but I'd gone to Pakistan to make a documentary about music and culture and Islam. And he died while I was out there. And then my mum passed away in 2008.
Right.
My brother's still alive and he's all right, but he still loves all the punk stuff. But he's had a pretty normal 9-to-5 life. So and he keeps, he goes, "Oh, it was me who put on that gig with Crass and Poison Girls and made Aki enough money to buy his first drum kit." And he's got a good sense of humour.
Excellent. Yes.
So he's still there, and I still meet a lot of the old punks.
Yes.
I was good mates with Buzz. I get on really well with. We talk nearly every other day. Barry's around, but down in Surrey. Ian's doing his cult stuff. I just see it as rock and roll. Really, it doesn't do anything for me.
No.
And B here. I mean, I seem fine with everybody. I haven't really got a problem because I managed to kind of completely accidentally just have my own path as I go along.
Yes.
Probably out of all the musicians that I've worked with, and I've worked with loads, I'm the most talentless out of all. I'm shit. I don't even consider myself a musician, but I'm so grateful that I've worked with. Even today when I was looking at Prophets of the City, I realised I worked with one of the best saxophone players in South Africa when we played there. He was called Big Voice Jack, and he was a great sax player. And he played with Fundamental when we went there. And I just found a picture of him today, of me and him, and I thought, wow, I don't deserve to be playing with this great jazz saxophonist. And we worked with some great people in Europe as well. Some great.
Yes.
It's been not a regular band. Fundamental has been incredible.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a journey, hasn't it?
You get 20 Zulu singers on stage with you doing kind of a rough version of Anarchy in the UK. I mean, what's better than that?
Well, absolutely. God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, what an amazing life. Well, luckily you've got more projects on the horizon, and yes, there's still
Yeah, I'm
things to
going
do.
to. No, I really, you know, as what's happening outside in the world, as you know, right now, it's getting a bit edgy again, a bit right wing, not a bit, a lot of right wing injustices. You got Trump, you got Farage, you got all these people around. It just triggers me, and I just go, I need to do some music. I need to get vocal about stuff. Um,
And have you kept in touch with Catherine, your sidekick on Nation?
I haven't heard from her for quite a while, but she moved back up to Bradford. She got married, had babies, moved back to Bradford, and then she was involved in the Bradford Festival, all that, and I think she was doing some DJing and things like that. But I haven't really talked to her for a long time,
Right.
so I haven't really, we haven't really touched base.
Yes, God. Well, I mean, you
I mean,
can't.
she left in 2001 or something. I don't know. She left
Right.
very early when she got just after she got married. I mean, you know, she takes a lot of credit for holding a lot of things together and managing Transglobal and Natasha and keeping things going. I mean, you know, I was out and about doing
Yes.
all that work, and she'd hold the. I mean, you know, I'd also work in the office and do a lot of stuff in there, getting things together.
So is Nation Records now in your box room on a computer, or do you have an
Yeah.
office?
Oh, I've got an office in the back. I've got an office in the back and a studio in the back.
Right.
So it's all in one, and there's hundreds of files. You know, 1993 artist accounts, 19 legal files, blah 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 blah. It's all written in there, all, and it's like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen with all of this, and DATs, thousands of DATs.
Oh God, yes, I know. Old technology.
Yeah, so you know,
Look, I better go to bed soon, actually. But look, Aki, thank you ever so much for your time. This has been an amazing story. And yes, if you want, I can always give you the link to this once I've
yeah,
done it,
totally.
and then put it on your social media platform sites, which, you
Yep.
know.
Well, let's keep in touch. If you need to redo anything, just let me know. I can come back on and repeat.
Yeah.
Unless it's because it must be a nightmare for you to be edited. I don't know good at editing.
It can be, but never mind. It'll be fun. But thank you for your time and amazing story. But I'll
All right.
say goodbye. But take
All right.
care.
Thank you very much. Look after yourself.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
And that, dear listener, is the end of the interview. Well done if you got that far. And yes, you deserve a medal. But this, a massive thank you to Aki for giving me the time for that. Amazing. This has been the C86 Show, David Eastaugh. So if you want to contact me, you can on any of the social media platform sites. Just do C86 Show. And all these interviews have been archived on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. It's true. Lucky you. Anyway, have a great week. Stay safe.